You do Adug at the bottom of page Kufpeg Gimel. Zion, which will be halfway down.
The line ends with Ladeni Soin. The next line begins with Chidu Adugma.
Yeah, for those who have the Sefer, if you're using the Lahak website, it's a different layout. Halfway down through Zion.
All right, one line above the footnote of 55, Re'ei Breishis Rabbah. That's the footnote. You have.
So he's explaining why the avodah has to be achrei aval kechem telechem. That to go from the Oni Mitzrayim to the Eretz Zavas Chalav Dvash, which is the avodah of Pnimius HaMoichin and Pnimius HaMidas, that cannot happen directly, but the Seder Ishtalshalus and the Seder avodah is Panim V'Ocher, Eretz and Kalim, Havaya, Elikim, Chitzonius, and then Pnimius, which he's been explaining over the last few Oisias. Continuing to explain that Kidu Adugm Lazem Adam Marishan. So it's not the illustration of Adam Marishan, namely, if there isn't the avoid of Nisoyan, of a journey, and the journey entails confronting obstacles and challenges, then the destination arrived at, if it's arrived at immediately, so it's not permanent. Not only is it not permanent, it means even when you're there, you're not really there. So if you do a dugma, so he was created directly by the Eibishter. So what could be loftier than that? It's a lesson from another Maimon. He was completely divested of Gashmias, being a divine creation in the most literal sense. And still, he wasn't able to withstand and be faithful to the commandment and failed the test. Why? Because his station was not through his effort at all. He was because he was so created. Likewise, Matzinim b'shas Matan Torah, similarly Matan Torah, Shagam Mosa, Yamayim the Matzev, B'tchilas Abriya, Matan Torah was also similar to Admarishan state. How do we see that? Kasha Ulam Amiloy Nivra, first of all, creation was created whole and perfect. And Matan Torah is similar to that. It was creation back to its perfect state. How do we see that? So Chazal say, Rashi brings it in the words Yom Hashishi. Why does it say Yom Hashishi, not Yom Shishi? Like the other days, Chamishi, Revi, Shlishi. Malamed, to teach us, he's not Kadosh Baruch Hu Ma'aseh Bereishis. The Eibishter made a condition with Ma'aseh Bereishis. I'm creating you on the condition that if the Yidden will accept the Torah on the 6th day of Sivan, then your creation is justified. Meaning, so when Matan Torah came, so Matan Torah is Hainish Matan Torah b'shishi b'sivan nase ishu v'chizuk al briyas ha'olam. So that means when Matan Torah came on the 6th of 7th, so that ishu means ratifies and strengthens creation. So the whole world then was in its perfect state. Now, finally, even more so than the Olam Amiloy and Nivra at the outset of creation. So what could be better? However, it's all wonderful, and the world was. We play with this. I could keep on arranging it. So the world was in its perfect state, and yet, it was all gilim milamayla le avodah v'yigia, without avodah in yigia. Now there was be'emes, there was avodah sfiras ha'omer. but relatively speaking, not. Question is Liel, Sheklal is singing the Matan Torah from the Ponim El Ponim. Matan Torah Taka was Pnimius, the Pnimius of the Likus, touching the Pnimius of every Yid. That was a Pnimius that was granted above this very deep connection. Hashem's essence touching the essence of every Yid. But that's granted from above, but not in a way where the person, the Bala Nisayan, he himself has experienced and gone through trials and tribulations. Therefore, it didn't last, and they stumbled in the Chet HaEgel. And therefore, there had to be the second luchis. And how did that come about? That happened through tshuva. Tshuva is all toil from, he's distant and he's coming from a far place. And he's struggling to be close. And that, the pasuk says, Tushia means wisdom. Kiflaim means double. It's a reference to the luchas shniyos, where the wisdom that was given was far greater. Most of Torah Shebal Peh was given with the luchas shniyos and not the luchas rishonos. So that was the kiyum v'chizuk. That was the true kiyum v'chizuk. Kein chacham kebal nisayin again, for there's no wise like the one who has had the experience who has stumbled, who has faced tests. And therefore, when they took them out of Mitzrayim, the pasuk says, "They didn't take them the direct route to Plishtim." Even those fast heavens concerned, they could have gone directly to the broad land. Explained all of this as the opposite of the Aniyas of Mitzrayim, and Eretz Zavas Chalavot is the godless Hamoichin, Pnimius Hamoichin. Both Chochmah and Bina, Tainug, associated with both Dvash and Chol, I've explained earlier. That's where this Rachvas comes from, when this Tainug. Tainug means the person's essentially invested, there's no room for anything else. So he could have taken them Miyad B'Tzeisam Mitzrayim immediately, Mekamokim, nonetheless, Kivin Shaitzim Mitzrayim away from the Barach HaOm. As we said earlier, they left Mitzrayim in a way, they had to flee Mitzrayim, because they were still the Yosem Maimar, the Matzav done in Mitzrayim. It wasn't a deliberate process of Avodah. It was fleeing, was rushing, because a moment longer, they simply would not have left. They would have been swallowed, or they refused to have gone. So to go from a Maimar, the Matzav on in Mitzrayim, you can't get that at Zavas Chalavot Dvash directly. The people will regret when they see war. They'll face one test and they'll fail, finished. One battle and it's over. He goes, they'll come to a test and all will collapse. So therefore the journey to the broad land, that's unto Eretz Zavas Chalavot Dvash, had to be in a seder and level by level. Is talking about the immediate exodus. He led them around, not the direct route. Following after God, it's external. Not that he's external. He's only connecting externally, but he's giving all his God. But when it comes to Pnimis, it comes out that on one hand he's saying that Matan Torah collapsed because the Matan Torah Chet HaEgel because it was so quick. But even this wasn't so quick. Matan Torah came after Vayasev Elikim. It was V'lei Nachem Derech Eretz Plishtim. So there was, like Ilu Zachinu, in that short time, that avodah may have sufficed, but that was not meant to be either, and had to be, as he says, he mentioned that explicitly, the Alboim Shona in the Midbar. So the template was laid out by the Eibishter at the get-go. It has to be an avodah b'seiv adroga, that's the Sfiras Ha'omer. But that was rapid also and childish, and therefore didn't last. But it's all part of the process. It's part of the process of a certain degree of maturity to some degree and a connection. But then there was the most dramatic fall, following the greatest connection about the Torah. Okay, so it's all relative. Eisches. So now I was going to explain that which you pointed out at the beginning of the Maamar, that Amalek. David, is there a Maamar here? You made, okay, but I sent it. It's on the WhatsApp. You can tune in right here, and you'll be able to follow. So it's on the Fabrengen at WhatsApp. You're on the Fabrengen WhatsApp. If you go back a bit, if you didn't erase it, I can send it again. You have it? We'll go on the ha'tשכ website. I can send it quickly. I think I still, no, I don't know if I have it myself, mind you.
I just posted it there for bringing it.
Someone just did?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So Eisches. So he's saying, we see that the Pasuk associates Amalek's attack of the Jews in several psukim. We noted that it's that the attack is leaving Mitzrayim. So Amalek attacks the Jews in this whole journey from the constraint, from the constricted state, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, of Mitzrayim to the broad, expansive state of Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Zavos Chalot Dvash. Throughout the entire journey, till we get there, we have to deal with Amalek. And who is Amalek? And how do we defeat him? That's the point of the mind. In light of all of the above, what did we explain? We explained at length what's the journey. The journey from in simple language, the most selfish state. That's how we're born. We're born completely selfish, only aware of immediate needs now. And cold, hungry, tired, hot, itching, whatever it is that the child experiences. It's all we know. To go to Eretz Zavos Chalot Dvash, which is expansive, and expansive means there's room for somebody else. It's broad. It's inclusive. That's a radical journey. Not a radical journey, but radical positions. So there's the great battle, the Avodah, and along the way there's Amalek. So as we're on the journey out of Mitzrayim, we haven't yet gotten to the expansive, mature state, but rather, with the beginning of the Avodah, we're still connecting to Yiddishkeit on an external level, with all of our efforts. That's follow after me, behind me. So then, till you get the Eretz Zavos Chalot Dvash, once you're there, Amalek is given up. One is impervious to the sneak attacks of Amalek that catch us sometimes by surprise. But till we get there, be aware. As h'tchk says, you have to be careful. And we're warned with the war of Amalek. Who is this Amalek? So Bilam said, Reish is Goyim Amalek. Amalek is the first of the nations, referring to the first to attack the Yidden after Yetzias Mitzrayim. But his end is Adei Ovid, utter destruction, eternal destruction. Meaning, on the one hand, Amalek is connected to all the nations. That's Reish Goyim. He's the source. For Reishism, he is their head and source. Yet his end is not the same as them. Because the end of Amalek is not like the rest of the nations. With respect to the rest of the nations, the pasuk says, "Oz then Mashiach will come. I will turn literally transform to the nations, literally turn upon them. Safa brura, a clear tongue, language. They'll all speak Likrei Kulam b'Shem Hashem. They'll all call out the name of God, La'ov Dein Tzevim, Shem Echad, one shoulder, one consent in unity. So it's the transformation, not the destruction. His end is eternal destruction. So why is that? So very avodidik in Maamar. You have to understand the difference between Amalek and the rest of the nations. I think I told you the story. I don't know if you know the players here, but I've forgotten how one of the great Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe became a Chassid. What sparked his journey was Purim, or Shabbos Parsha Zocher, rather. And he saw this Chassid, I think we know what it was, I just don't remember now. He saw the way this Chassid, by Kriyas HaMegillah, by the reading Parsha Zocher, he saw in him, without, there's nothing external, but this deep, deep milchama, hatred of Amalek. It's like, what's this? It's an old story. We're remembering what Amalek did, and no one even knows Amalek is today. And what's this chassid getting all emotionally, deeply emotional of an old story? I'm missing something. I got to find out what this chassid is feeling. That remember what Amalek did and wipe him out. This was something that completely had, the man was don't know what he saw, turmoil, but in the story goes, this deep sin, this intolerance, this determination to destroy Amalek. What? We don't even know who he is. We got to find out what something he knows that I don't know. And that's what led him to the Alter Rebbe. So what's Amalek? We're going to find out. The 7 nations that occupy the land of Yisrael, each one represents another emotion, a negative emotion, just like the 7 midas in Kedusha. So they're the 7 midas of the Nefesh HaBahamis. That's what leads to sin. He explains now a question. It's a question. The Zohar says, "V'nefesh kisechta." We learned this. And a person will sin, so it goes on to describe the karbonis to bring. So the Zohar reads it as a question. V'nefesh kisechta. A yid can sin. We're crazy to sin. Why do you want to do a thing like that? Nobody gains. It's ridiculous. So that's what he's asking. How can a person stumble into a sin? You're a rational, good man, you're a decent human being, you're from a yid. How does this happen? But of course the matter is that this is the whole subject of the Maamar explained there the statement of Chazal. The Gemara in Soita that ein Adam over Avera Elim kenichnas beruach shtus. It's ridiculous, but that's what happens. A spirit of folly clouds the person. What exactly is the folly? Where does it come from? The hind of the foolishness is shenid malay. The person, it appears to him. Imagine shebavera zu eiden lebeyadus. Nothing really changed. Not little discretion. But with this, I'm still a yid and still whatever. However, I'm still a chassid. That's the foolishness. And that then leads to far more serious situations. Commissioner Kosov, the pasuk says, in Yeshaya, Hoi, woe, Moishe ha'ovein b'chavli hashov. They draw sin upon themselves with false ropes, like a spider web. But then the kavos hagolachot, then like the thick ropes of the wagon, the reins of a wagon, they sin. So it starts off the Tzahara with what appears to be something very inconsequential and minor, nothing significant. But then it leads to the thick ropes of the wagon. Yes, an allusion to the Bahamis, to the behemoth that drags the person down. How does it begin? Beginning is that the person is a mind with the matzah that he cares about godliness and his relationship with the Eibush. But he imagines shegam kasher over avera. If he doesn't avera, then beyadusay, he's still in his Jewish state. I once shared this with you. Elsewhere in Chassidus it says that in fact the Yitzhara exploits the Eibush to do the avera. Yitzhara says what Homer actually was saying, that Eibush is so great. You can tolerate this. You can tolerate this. But you're so small and God's so great. Before Hashem, all is equal and you're insignificant. So he exploits the union of what? Of the transcendence of a likus. What we fail to realize is, the Eibush is great and greater still, but cares about this moment. But that's the shtus, that nothing changes. In Yelachar is nichnas be'ruach shtus. So it's interesting here. This I never saw like this. No, okay. Ad kedei kach, and then I thought he's saying it happens afterwards. The ruach shtus is the nidmeloi, but then the illusion that nothing has changed, everything is okay. Still a good boy. Then the ruach shtus enters further. Ad shenas kebehema, it becomes like a behemoth. Because like Gemara, the Gemara says that why the Saita brings the korban is from barley, or all of the other korbanis mincha from wheat, because she did a ma'aseh behemoth, so let a korban be a ma'aseh behemoth. So that's alluded to in the pasuk too, that it starts off b'chavli hashav, ropes, false ropes. Now the spider web looks like it's a rope, but then ka'avois ha'gola chata, thick like the reins of the wagon. That's the allusion to the behemoth. As he says, Ruach HaBehemoth, that's the matter, the spirit of man, the pasuk says, is to ascend, that's the neshama. But the spirit of the behemoth, it's drawn downwards. Shein the Raya Ruchni is, it doesn't see Ruchni, it's a behemoth, its head is on the same level as its stomach and the lower organs, which means that this whole life is just one, it's all one. It's all to feed the stomach and the sensual appetite. But more than that, the behemoth never sees the sky. There are animals that they don't know there's a sky. They never saw it. A horse sometimes rolls on his back. But I've noticed it usually does it with the eyes closed. So even the horse doesn't see that there's a sky. You could see behemoth looking up, but his eyes are closed. But most behemoths don't even look up. He'll see the grass and the water, and that's about it. And then there's mating season, and that's it. That's the whole life. Shein the Raya Ruchnius, he doesn't see Ruchnius. Look at this distinction here, friends. For Koshkin v'Kalvachem, Shein the Raya Likus. For sure, he doesn't see a Likus. There's Ruchnius, is spirituality, and there's a Likus. What's the difference? Spirituality just means the sense that there's something higher. Something higher, not just the sensual fulfillment and Gashmias v'chulu. He doesn't see that, and for sure not a Likus. Holiness. Now in brackets, I don't know why this is in brackets. We're trying to explain Amalek. Don't know. Anyway, that's why and likewise we find by Amalek. What does it about say about Amalek? Literally, he encountered you along the way, but korcha, lashon karirus, cold. Amalek doesn't come along and say, don't do a mitzvah. There is no hope in us taking him seriously. What does he do? He cools the excitement and the warmth. So it's subtle. And therefore, the connection to the Likus weakens. And that leads a person further down. It's not exactly the same thing as he said before. Now he's not understanding why he says before he was speaking about this foolishness, the illusion that nothing has changed. Similar to Amalek. Here it's not so much nothing has changed. It's Amalek has a different kind of argument. And he says, what are you getting so excited about? What's the whole excitement? If they gave Torah mitzvahs, good. So, yeah, sure, you got to do it. But to approach it with this awe and wonder, it's here today, it's here tomorrow, it was here yesterday. Not new, always around. What's the excitement? And moreover, Chassidus says, when something happens in a person's life and he sees Pashat, Hashgacha Pratis, he sees miracles, he sees how the Eibishter saved him despite himself, the mother comes along and says, what's the excitement? The Eibishter can do anything. It's just easy for him. What's the big deal? What's the big deal of the gifts in your life? He's excited. That person should be wake up in the morning, he's got a wife, he's got children, he's got health. The Malach says, that's the way of the world. And besides, God can do anything, and millions of people got this. A million arguments to cool the ardor, to cool the excitement. So it's similar to it's foolish. It's foolish. Because others have it, make it less of a miracle. It makes it more of a miracle. So it's a similar idea. Hence, it's in brackets in al-derech, even though the subject matter is Amalek here. Let's go further. So then he calls his ardor for spirituality altogether, and then the likus, and then it gets even worse. Aveda can actually do an Aveda. It's a few steps here before he can actually do something that he shouldn't. It's spirituality, it's not so excited, and then the likus. And then it's itself, it said before, it doesn't start an Aveda that's outright absolute transgression. No, it starts with something because he still cares. So he puts the two together now. So it starts off with the kritis, it seems, even before that. So that the first thing is the coldness. That's what comes out here. That's Reishis Grim Amalek. Before even the Ruach Shtus, that's right, guys, that's what I'm saying here. Before the Ruach Shtus, which he says now, that Haschola, before that started, the coldness, the indifference, the taking things for granted. That's the root of it all. And then comes the shtus that it's nothing really changed. I'm still a good boy. And then he descends down that path, which is a slippery slope, right? Then he doesn't care at all. Comes indifferent. Doesn't mean he's not doing Torah mitzvahs, but it means his failures. Okay, he became immune. That's me. I don't care. However. Okay, maybe we'll go a little bit further. So this is the story of all of us, friends. So the good news is that even though the pasuk says an awakening from above will come from heaven, come from above. He'll be aroused from above. They just won't let us. Leaders MS and will be stirred one way or another. The Eibush will find a way that we should see the MS Havayla Ilam, that Hashem is the true MS, getting caught up in the world. What's the world? The world is nothing. The world is a likus. Yes, more than that, everything, anything that is a transgression of Hashem's will, even the slightest nuance of the sages, and even less than that, he's referring to Minhagim, less than divrei sofrim. To transgress that nasa nifred melikus, he's cut off from the Eibishter. Tanya, like explains in Tanya, it's the whole point of Tanya, is we should understand that's what's at stake with every moment in life. It's either a moment or he explains at length in Tanya that Avodah Zarah doesn't mean there's no God. It means there's also me. And once this arousal comes, it cannot be that he won't learn and turn into a mitzvahs mikivir shemakir v'des emes. He now recognizes and knows the emes. Let's conclude the mizem. Move on. Shezayin ha'umma yishem zayin ha'midis harois yeshtem tikkun u'birur. The 7 nations, their loves and fears and emotional entanglements, they can all be channeled and in the right place, and all be part of the Avodah Hashem. But not a Molech. It's so unloved that they'll all be transformed and channeled. You're looking for something, this is what you're looking for. Nefesh HaBamis isn't a bad fellow. Just doesn't know better. Doesn't even know what he wants. That's why nothing's ever enough. So then, with Nefesh HaBamis is enlightened and shown the beauty of Yiddishkeit and understand, it's the whole point of Chassidus, then there's transformation. But as we go on to say, Amalek, there's no transformation. Amalek has to be utterly rooted, and destroyed.